clerk to read the land acknowledgement.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the city of Thorold is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The city of Thorold stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Can you just check and make sure on? Okay. Adoption of the agenda.
Jim is
Right?
Jim Henley.
What?
Jim, hello? Hey, are you not able to connect? Oh, okay. 6:30. We have started. Nicholas and Councillor Handley is not able to.
What's the matter? We'll take a pause while they work on a technical issue, one of our online counselors. Oh, you. Put my mic on here. We have a delegation, and I'll call on Calvin Lance, partners, Stikeman Elliott LLP, for his delegation respecting correspondence CWCD 399-2024 respecting Uppers Lane Road Extension. Mr. Lance, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Your Worship and members of Council, good evening. My name is Calvin Lance, a partner with Stikeman Elliott, and I'm representing two separate landowners this evening, Redanco Hospitalities Corporation and Parkbridge Lifestyle Communities, Inc. On behalf of my clients, I wish to thank Council for giving me an opportunity tonight to speak to my client's interests in the proposed road extension at this public meeting. I trust that all of you have received and reviewed the correspondence that have been sent to the clerk's attention yesterday in preparation of tonight's meeting. I'd like to first begin by stating that my client fully supports the introduction of a school in the Rolling Meadows secondary plan area. But as you can see from the letters submitted, my clients are deeply concerned with the lack of transparency and the lack of consultation around the proposed upper lane extension and who has been chosen by this council for its construction. Now, my client, Rodenko, has 23 hectares, and Parkbridge has 55 hectares in the secondary plan area. Rolling Meadows Development Corporation, and I'm going to refer to Rolling Meadows tonight as just Rolling Meadows. So Rolling Meadows, together with my client's lands, all have live applications in the secondary plan area. And my client has been actively involved in this and engaged in discussions with planning staff for years respecting their application. But as outlined in my letter to council, my clients have serious concerns with the lack of public notice of an agenda item that was added on September 10th at the council meeting, when my clients were effectively denied a voice at council when it was considering who should be afforded the right to build the upper lane road extension. So, why are my clients concerned? So when we look at what's been happening here, what we see is on September 10th, at that meeting, an item was inserted on the agenda at the floor of council without the benefit of a staff report or supporting materials or without notice to my clients who are affected landowners in the area. And how this took place, frankly, is odd. And I've looked at the recording of it. I wasn't here because I didn't have notice, but I've seen what took place. And in the absence of public notice and in the absence of input from planning staff and supporting materials and input from other landowners, council passed a resolution directing that an agreement be entered into with only one landowner, Rolling Meadows, to construct the road extension. Now, all of this is highly unusual, especially when you look at the backdrop of what transpired at this council meeting just a few weeks earlier regarding the site alteration permits that were being sought by my clients. Rolling Meadows attempted to interfere with the issuance of a site alteration permit by Parkbridge, and then attempted to do again the same thing with Rodenko, when Rodenko was moving forward for a site alteration permit. And you'll recall I spoke to council on this matter. And the details of this are set out in my letter of September 20th. In both cases, Rolling Meadows sought to impose cost-sharing conditions relative to a draft plan condition, and I argued that's inappropriate. Draft plan conditions are dealt with under the Planning Act. Site alteration is on the Municipal Act. They're not related, and there was no justification for imposing those conditions. Now, I want to be clear, though, at this point, and I'm just going to take a moment and just reiterate, because I've said this at previous meetings. My client understands and fully appreciates and accepts that there will be cost sharing for work done by a neighboring landowner on infrastructure that is needed for another development. But to date, we have not received a draft cost-sharing agreement from Rolling Meadows. And furthermore, we've sent letters to Rolling Meadows proposing an impartial cost consultant to be brought in and to work with us on the issue of cost sharing. And those letters have gone unanswered. And we've sent follow-up letters, and it's unanswered. Now, after the site alteration permits were issued by, approved by this city and issued, we learned, and this happened just last week, that a temporary gravel road that was put in place on the right-of-way, the unimproved right-of-way, to give access to Park Bridge, was torn up and removed, the gravel removed. And that was put down by Park Bridge based on authority given to it in May of last year, and thereby frustrating Park Bridge's ability to gain access to its site to give effect to that site alteration permit. Now, the right-of-way, you should know, and perhaps all of you do know, the right-of-way to the east is heavily treed, and there's vegetation, and it's not able to be used for passing. The site alteration permit that was applied for by Park Bridge came with a truck haul route map, and that was part of the application, and the access was to be taken to the west. And with that, they put in the road improvements at a significant cost. It's now been ripped up, and the gravel's gone. Now, if that isn't bad enough, then we learn the next day that a blockade has been put up by Rolling Meadows with equipment at the entry to the unimproved road allowance, completely blocking Park Bridge's ability to gain access to its lands. Now, I just want to go back for a moment. When we learned of what happened on September 10th, and we made a request of staff for the detailed drawings, we were refused. And then a meeting was set, and then staff canceled the meeting. That meeting only took place last Thursday, and the drawings came to us less than 24 hours before that meeting. And it was only then, and this has been going on now for weeks, and it's only then they realized, from looking at the drawings, that the proposed extension and the drawings that were proposed by Rolling Meadows does not include the servicing connections that are needed. It doesn't size it properly, and the grading was off by about a meter. And it's important to note, this is relative to lands, the Park Bridge lands, which already have draft plan approval. So what should council do with this now that they see what's happening? I mean, we really hope council will not turn a blind eye to all this and award Rolling Meadows the job of constructing an essential segment of the road and the services that serve as a linchpin to my client's development to the east. When you take all this together, you should not be surprised when I say that there's a serious trust issue here now, given the events that are leading up to today. And what I'd put to council is that the only solution that would resolve this, and it's a simple solution, is for the city to build the road. And to that end, our client has its engineers put forward engineering letters that were sent to the city's Director of Public Works. Copies of those letters were provided to council. I also want to stress that Park Bridge must have continuous access to the road allowance during the construction of the road extension. The case law on this is clear. You cannot block access to a landlocked parcel that fronts on a road allowance. And any agreement entered into for the construction of the road needs to reflect that. It needs to acknowledge that and allow for that. Now, having said all of this, I mean, our preference is for the city to build the road. If it turns out that the city's preference is not to build the road, and that is not our preference, but if that's where it's going, then there's no reason why the affected parties should not be part of that agreement, part of the negotiation of the agreement, and part of the agreement, so that they can be certain that the road construction happens appropriately, in a timely manner, and that no one landowner can interfere or delay the delivery of the residential developments beyond. In other words, all affected landowners must have the ability to pick up the shovel and finish the job if the party who started the work claims to be unable or unwilling to complete it. Giving construction privileges to only one landowner without such protections and safeguards for the other affected landowners is a mistake. And to negotiate such an agreement in secrecy without transparency is a mistake, especially in light of what's going on here. Now, I'm going to pause. I want to say one more thing before I wrap up. Of course, we want the city to build the road, but our client has confirmed today that they would be willing to engage in mediation with Rolling Meadows and representatives of the city staff to sit down together in a room and sort this out. This is not rocket science, but the parties have to come together and talk. We've been sending letters and we're not getting a response, and no one's been reaching out to us for details. So we are willing and able to participate in mediation, and I would suggest the council may want to consider hitting the pause button on this and give everyone some sober second thoughts and come together and see if a resolution can't be resolved with the assistance of a mediator. Again, on behalf of my clients, I thank you for your time this evening and for allowing me to address council. I know this is a special meeting and unusual circumstances. I thank you for that. And those are my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions any of you may have.
Thank you, Calvin, for your presentation. Now I'll open the floor up to council if there's any questions from council. Can you let me know if there's anyone online that has questions? Hey? Okay, I got Councillor O'Hara first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Calvin. I'm not sure, Calvin, if you're going to be able to answer this, but I'll pose the question regardless, and that is the two developments to the north and south of Upper Lane Access Road. Do all those new developments have to be tied in with the infrastructure that's going to be built or installed on the Upper Lane Road?
Through you, sir, you're right, I can't answer that question exactly. I do know that we are talking about services that need to be provided through there for the developments of Parkbridge and Rodanko, which is further to the east and then to the south. There are other lands in there, other affected landowners, but they need to be brought in. And I would just add, the problem is if you don't bring them in, it means disruption of the road, delay, digging up the road again, reinstalling new services at an additional cost, all of which gets borne by the homeowner. I mean, it's not practical, it's not efficient, and unfortunately we see, maybe wrongly, rightly, but we see risk here of delay and unacceptable leverage that could be placed on our clients. That's our concern. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Dedavides. Has he got a question? Eh? There he is. Councillor Dedavides, you're up. You're muted. Councillor Dedavides, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
There you go,
Yeah.
Michael. We can only hear each other. They can't hear us.
No, we can hear him.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for Calvin. Would your clients, Rodanko, be willing to build the road?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think in fairness, it would likely be Parkbridge. The interesting thing about this is Parkbridge, I mean Rodanko perhaps, but Parkbridge for sure. And the reason I say that is because Park Bridge is located directly to the north of the right-of-way that's being proposed for the extension. The Park Bridge lands are draft plan approved. And if you look at condition 25 in their draft plan approval, you will see that there is obligations on them to build the road. And not only are there obligations there to build the road, but they designed the road and they gave it to staff last June 2023. And so staff have been in possession of a design of that road since that time, and in fact, staff commented on it. And that's why all of this is such a surprise, because we're draft plan approved with an obligation to build the road. They fully expected to build the road. They designed the road, and this happens.
Oh.
So the short answer is yes. Park Bridge would be willing to do it.
Thank you.
Are there any
And one more question. Has Rolling Metals ever reached out to Rodanco or Park Bridge about the capacity, the size? Any questions about working together building it?
Based on my investigations with the client and consultants, no. There's been no communication.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further questions from council? None. Thank you, Calvin, for your presentation.
Jim Hanley's trying to get through.
Did Councillor Hanley have a question? I didn't see his hand up.
My hand's been up. Can I talk? My hand was up and everything.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to say that in regards to I got a couple of things to say that is
But
incorrect because I've been doing a little homework the last couple of days. In regards to the road being blocked, sir, do you realize that was actually a service call at the time? I have pictures and that stuff of the service vehicle actually there, and I've requested that service records be given to show that the equipment was actually being worked on and not deliberately blocking your access to Park Ridge property. Are you aware of that?
Through you, Your Worship, I'm not aware of any information you've received. The information I received from my client, who was at the site taking photographs, showed that the equipment was lined up across the entrance, and we have photos, and I've submitted those photos to council.
That's right, and I have photos that'll show you that actually a Caterpillar service vehicle is there. And I've asked through the owner that the records be given to me to dispute that fact, that it wasn't there blocking the road. They were actually servicing an excavator and another piece of equipment, just to make the clarification. I've done my homework, just to let you know.
Any other?
Do you know, can I ask, are you aware that Rolling Metals, the proposed individual, has already built 3 different sections of Uppers Lane while building phases 11, 15, and 16?
Yes, I'm aware that he's done some work, yes.
And could I ask you, have you gone to that work site? Have you seen, has there been any issues with the road? Was the road not built in accordance? Was it not built to satisfaction of the city? Would you know that?
Through you, Your Worship, I'm a lawyer, unfortunately, not an engineer, and I wouldn't know if the road was built properly or not. That's just not something I would know.
So why? Okay, then you're saying you're assuming though that what I'm getting here is that Rolling Metals shouldn't be building the road because they may not build it to the specifications that your clients wish them to do. So in doing any research, did you see if there had been any issues with Rolling Metals building the previous 39 roads it built in the subdivision over the last 14 years?
Through you, Your Worship,
I think
if I could respond to this. Our issue is that in a session where there was no public notice given, no notice to our clients who are developing in this area, one of which is draft plan approved, they had no knowledge of what came forward on September 10th. They had no ability to speak to it. And it appears that council didn't appreciate the conditions that are already at play for Park Bridge and the construction of the road. And in the context of all of that, we are saying it was not appropriate for one landowner to be chosen then arbitrarily or for some other reason, to be the
Okay. Are you
contractor
aware
of the
that,
road.
are you aware that on presentations on September 10th, 2024, under section 9.2, public school proposal, Rolling Meadows Community, William Highcott, planning manager, Upper Canada Consultants attended council that night?
Yes?
Are you aware of that? And that a lady and an individual from DSBN school also attended the meeting that night? So, council, that our report was released on the Thursday. So we did follow procedure in regards to how it came forward. And it was at that time that I put a motion forward and asked for the bylaw, the policy in regards to being able to bring a motion forward at the time. And council voted on it and approved it. Are you aware of that?
Comment. You're here to ask questions, please.
Well, I want to know if he was aware that council actually did follow procedure and that I brought a motion forward to go off policy and ask for an amendment so that we could vote on to move it forward, and council did that. I'm asking him if he was aware of that, Mr. Mayor.
Through you.
We did follow procedure.
Councillor Hanley, please. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as indicated, I had seen the recording of what took place. If you're asking me whether I think you followed procedure, I'm saying you did not.
Okay, I disagree with you. Thank you. No more questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. Any further questions? Okay, again, thank you once again for your presentation and answering questions, Calvin. Okay, in accordance with the city's procedural bylaw, correspondence CWCD 399-2024 respecting Uppers Lane Road extension will follow the delegation. CWCD 399-2024 correspondence from Sealands dated September 20, 2024 regarding agreement for extension of Uppers Lane. Is there a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor DeRose and Councillor Decker. Is there any discussion on the correspondence? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Closed session. Before we clear the chambers and I ask for a mover and a seconder to go into closed session, I would like to remind you of your obligations respecting closed session. Those who are participating electronically in the closed session must ensure that no other person is in the location from which they are taking part in the meeting or make appropriate arrangements so that any other persons cannot see or hear any of the confidential deliberations taking place. If this is not possible, you must withdraw from the meeting until it has reconvened in open session. And now we'll get the motion on the floor. That council do now move into closed session to receive confidential information respecting a matter respecting advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose under Section 239(2)(f) of the Municipal Act 2001, confidential CWCD 408-2024, respecting Uppers Lane roadway extension. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? I got Councillor O'Hare and Councillor Decker. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay.